For me, it's eating me up inside because my truths and my facts have been totally corrupted. My family history's been corrupted because my stories has been corrupted. My name is Brian Philip Wilmot, and I'm a family historian of more than 30 years. My interest in family history began in 1982. A very sad time for me because my mum passed away. I realised that I didn't know anything about my mother's early life. I didn't ask any questions, that's a fault. A lot of people don't do that. And I didn't have any family, maternal or paternal grandparents. My father was hardly ever around. Didn't know any grandparents, which is quite odd. I mean, people say, well, that's a peculiar thing. Didn't know grandparents, didn't have grandparents. That's very peculiar. But that was my story, that is my truth, and that started me out on the fascinating journey into family history. As time passed, I thought about this more and more, never known my grandparents, knowing little about my family, and wondered where some of my personality traits came from, and asking myself the question, who do you think you are? So during the course of that research in the 1980s, I visited repositories, Somerset House, which is in the Strand, which held birth, marriage and death certificates, cemeteries. I built up lots of information. During the course of that time, somehow, Jane Root, who was the founder of a film production company in North London called Wall to Wall, found out about me and contacted me. Subsequently to that, I visited their offices in Camden Town, and I left a file which documented my family history research and also covered things that related to my great-grandfather who lived in an Edwardian house in Holloway, and also mentioned the house that I was then living in, which was West Wickham in Kent. And that was a 1940s house, which was obviously Second World War era, and there was an Anderson shelter in the back garden still intact, would you believe? So I left this file with them, but I didn't hear anything else. Time passed and I hadn't heard from the production company. I forgot about passing on the file, and then sometime between 2002 and 2003, I was contacted by the production company asking if I would be interested in making a TV documentary about my family history journey. Of course, I said yes. Who wouldn't want to document on film their own fascinating story about their ancestors? So in that conversation, this man, I let him know everything about my story, and I told him about my family history, everything relating to it and what I found out. But I said to him, look, if you're going to make a program about family history, nobody knows my name, nobody knows who I am. And if it's going to be a success for TV to a wider audience, why don't you include celebrities as well? And I said, the reason I say that is because I read an article about Billy Connolly, and some of his family history resonated with me. It overlapped. Things were happened in his life and his ancestors, the same that happened to mine. And I said, celebrities, they haven't got there's no difference between their family history and ours, So why not use celebrities? And he seemed very interested in this. And I said, well, when I started out on my family history research, I said to myself at that time, because after my mum had died and I started on my journey, I had these kind of personality traits, extreme, if you like, one to the other. And I thought, well, where did this come from? I need to find out. And I thought to myself at that time, who do you think you are? And that started off the journey. So I suggested to him in that conversation, apart from using celebrities, that would be a good name for the show as well. And he seemed interested. And he said he'd get back to me. But that was the last I heard. There was no contact again. In 2004, I decided to travel, living in South America and then on to North America. I returned to England in 2011 having forgotten all about the phone conversations I had with the production company. I still had a keen interest in family history, and in 2014 I attended a history festival in Wiltshire. While I was there, I saw that there was an event called Meet the Production Team Behind Who Do You Think You Are? So I attended that event, and on the rostrum in front of me was this chap called Alex Graham, who previously I'd had a phone call from and told my story to. During the question and answers section of this event that I attended, somebody asked Alex Graham how the programme was conceived, and he outlined the fact that he had had a eureka moment reading an article about Billy Connolly and his childhood, and it resonated with him. And of course, what he was virtually taking the words out of my mouth. What he was doing was espousing my story as his own. I'd pitched this idea for a programme about celebrities exploring their ancestry, and even gave the title for the programme, Who Do You Think You Are? And there was this man publicly claiming this story to be his own and using the Billy Connolly connection that I'd given him in that phone conversation. So he was actually using, I felt like it was identity theft. He was taking my story and put it in out as his own. So my concept and my idea was now his and not mine. And that's why I felt a total feeling of injustice and indeed sadness. And going on to this point about Billy Connolly, when I told him in that phone conversation in 2003 about the connection with Billy Connolly, things resonating with my family history, Billy's family history that I'd read, it wasn't in an article in 1989 that he claims. It was from a 2003 book that Billy's wife, Pamela Stephenson, had published called Billy. So I would be interested to know exactly if there are any articles about Billy Connolly's family history that were published in 1989. The sense of injustice was overwhelming. The gamut of emotions going through me was quite incredible. Of course, after visiting the history event in Wiltshire, I started to research online or wherever I could and get information about what he'd been saying or how he'd put the story forward, how the programme was commissioned, what had happened. I sent emails to Alex Graham and Jane Root, who they worked together at Wall to Wall, and subsequently she moved to the BBC and actually commissioned the programme. I found an article in The Guardian. It was an interview with Alex Graham, and in that article Alex Graham recounts a meeting with Jane Root where the programme that eventually was aired was not what she conceived it to be. What I believe happened was she commissioned the programme about my story, which would probably be a two-parter, and consequently, Alex Graham contacted me. It was the phone call where I gave him this great suggestion about celebrity family history, even the title of the show. Jane Root left the BBC. He then produced this programme. So that's the one that aired, and that is why I believe it was different to what she originally commissioned. This is my speculation. That idea that I had, which included the title of the programme, which I voluntarily told because I thought this would be great because they were going to film a programme about me, worked to my detriment because it was taken from me and somebody else used it as their own and received accolades and financial reward for this. So you can see The facts and the truth are the important elements here when you're recording your own family history. None of this is proof. This is all circumstantial evidence. But this is my truth. This is my story. These are the facts. The best thing that I can do is to get that information out there, because then my personal history, my family history, is not being corrupted. Should I accept an injustice? Would you? There are some questions that need to be answered relating to this story, my truth. And we have to think first and foremost of, where did Alex Graham get the title from? We know my story, we know my reasoning and how it happened with me. Where did he get that title from? Now, the BBC archives, they must have records, so I'd like to know exactly what was pitched to them over those many years. If this was an idea that Alex Graham had himself, why has he never shown any interest in his own personal family history? I just want to end with a quote from the Dalai Lama. To be happy, you have to be honest, truthful and compassionate. Money and power are temporary.